going to call this meeting to order. It's the Finance Subcommittee for the Holyoke City Council. My name is Joe McGivern. I am the chair. To my right, Peter Tallman. To my left, Councilor Kevin Jordan, and to his left, Ward 2 Councilor Will Parolo. One of these days, Will, I'll get that perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe. I can't roll ours. We are live this evening. We are live through the Access Channel, Public Access Channel, Channel 15. We are also being Zoomed and recorded, and we also stream. We do have, and we are also joined in the chambers by Councilor Bacon, and we are joined online, which I have to say also, from our member of our committee, Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos. That makes us a hybrid meeting for this evening with one voting member being at home, which is no problem. But I would ask the motion to take all roll call votes that for the purpose of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, package items, suspend rules, any miscellaneous such motions. Unless there is an objection, we don't have to do a roll call.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call. Councilor Tallman?
Yes.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Powell?
Yes.
Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Councilor McGivern, yes. All right, so that takes care of that. And we have a good, not too long, but a good healthy agenda. If we could take items 1 and 2 as a package.
Motion to take items 1 and 2 off the table for discussion.
Motion made, second to take items 1 and 2 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 1 is an an agreement, an MOA between the City of Holyoke and the UFCW Local 1459 Council on Aging employees. Everybody has a copy. It's a one-page agreement. And item number 2 is the appropriation transfer that would support this agreement, which is from Chief Procurement Officer, $16,966, transfer into 3 items in the Council on Aging budget itself. Kitchen Supervisor, $1,827, Kitchen Assistant, $3,132, Social Worker Coordinator, $5,481, LPN Wellness Instructor, $2,872, Driver, $3,654, totaling $16,966. These items are off the table for discussion, as is customary. We do not negotiate contracts. When a contract is being negotiated, we cannot even intervene or have any influence on that. However, the body, as the appropriation legislative body, we do get to have a say at the final contract after negotiated with accordance to the appropriation that would finalize the contract itself. So with us this evening, we do have our Assistant City Solicitor, Mike Bissonette. We do have, is she here? Neve is here. Sorry, Neve. This laptop is very small writing. We do have Neve Rodriguez from the Council on Aging, and Jeff Jones, are you here also for this?
I am. Thank you.
Welcome, Jeff. Customary for the law department to walk through changes for the city side. I am shirking in my duties because the most important person sitting in this room is Mayor Joshua Garcia, as he always is for our Finance Committee meetings. But the contract was negotiated. Mike, did you want to lead us into this, or?
I don't see him here.
He was there a minute ago.
Yeah, there he is. Okay.
No, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, Mr. Chairman. There are some issues with regard to adjusting the pay for several of the employees, and there's money available, as you know, because we currently don't have a chief procurement officer. So there was money available in that line item, and as you can see from the order in front of you, the mayor seeks to fund this one-pager MOA by this transfer. So I hope the committee would go along with that.
Okay. And my understanding, and it's pretty clear, but just to go on the record, is this would be retroactive to July 1st of this fiscal year, July 1st, 2022. There would be a similar increase for the next fiscal year. I believe that's I believe it's a 2-year agreement. And the increases are not percentage increases, as were customary for cost of living. They are dollar per hour increases. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, with that in mind, before we get to questions and answers, Nate, did you want to weigh in, or Jeff, did you want to weigh in for the labor side?
From the labor side, I think it's a very, like it was described earlier, very straightforward agreement. It's a 2-year deal, retroactive to July 1st of 22. It's a $1 increase the first year, a $1 increase the second year. There are some minor adjustments to clothing allowance for kitchen staff and drivers, and that's basically it. Some grammatical changes, and that's about it. And Neve can correct me if I missed anything.
Okay. And the clothing allowances are capped at, with receipts, capped at $150 per fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. Naive, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm glad we came to a settlement. I think it's fair. I think, speaking on behalf of the work that the staff, the Council on Aging do, I think this is, I'm pleased that we've been able to settle it in this way. I'm pleased that they're getting $1 an hour.
Thank you. And to the committee and other councilors, are there any questions or discussion?
Just a couple.
Councilor Jordan.
Hi. How many employees are involved here in this agreement?
11.
11. Thank you. And why was $1 an hour arrived at? Was there an evaluation and we looked at what was fair compared to other type of similar workers? If you could just give us a little bit of the background as to why $1 year one and $1 year two, and what does that mean as a percentage? If you could let us know that, and that, has it been some time since these employees got a raise, perhaps? Is this compared to Chicopee or Springfield doing similar work, or at the Westfield Council on Aging? What type of due diligence was done? I know these workers work, really good for the city and do a great job, but if you could just give us some of that support, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Well, there was a lot of back and forth. We started off with percentages, but at the end of the day, I think that there was a feeling of trying to do better for the employees at the lowest end of the pay scale. So we do have some positions that pay between $16 and $17 per hour. So this $1 increase is significant for them and puts them more in line with what other communities are paying for similar positions. And then, of course, the percentage, if you will, is lower for the higher paid employees on staff.
Okay. So the short answer is, though, you looked at other communities and comparable positions to make sure that we're being competitive?
Of course.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. And it looks like the annual impact is what, approximately, looks like about maybe 19,000 a year, something on that order?
I think it was 16,966, 17,000.
Okay. Because it said 38,000 for 2 years. I don't know. Probably because of the compounding.
Yeah, I think the appropriation amount requested tonight is to supplement the already existing COA budget. So I think there is some money there. But I think the 19 per year, I think, is more accurate.
Okay. All right.
Councilor Drain.
I apologize. I actually did.
You're fine.
Okay. Have we struggled to fill the positions, Neve, or has it been, we've had good people, but we just want to hold on to them? Just kind of curious on that.
Sure. Yeah. Specifically for the driver position, and for the kitchen, assistant position. We did, this past fall, have to go out twice to try to hire for those positions. We did get people, but, it is a struggle. It has been, over the past year to fill the lower paying positions at the Council on Aging.
Okay, great, thank you. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion?
Joe?
Counselor Tomlin.
No, I just want to put in, I think this is a fair agreement. I actually get down to the Council on Aging, the Senior Center often, and great bunch of people down there, hardworking people, and actually have people from different communities that like to go to the Senior Center here, you know, for their lunches and for community activities there. They have several things to do, and it's a very well-run Council on Aging, so I'm very much in support of this transfer.
There was, somebody had, it says Council Chambers has their hands up, or is that?
Yeah, I
us?
don't know.
Panelist.
Jeff, you got your hand up?
No, that's actually the computer in front of you.
That's us?
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think someone operating the computer has no idea what he's doing.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that item 1 and item 2 be approved.
Motion made second that item 1 be approved, received, and in conjunction with item number 2 to approve and recommend the adoption of the transfer at the next city council meeting, which is next Tuesday, which would ratify the contract itself. If there's no further discussion, seeing none, the roll call vote, Counselor Tomlin?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Pello? Counselor Juan Anderson Burgos?
Absolutely.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to take item number 3 off the table for discussion?
Second.
Motion made second to take item 3 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 3 is the request to be allowed to accept a grant under Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A, the provisions of the fiscal 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, $37,248 with no match. By accepting this, we would also grant and authorize the establishment of fund and/or other method appropriate for the accounting of receipts and expenditures of all resources with the administration of said grant. Off the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John Hart was going to attempt to join us by telephone. John, are you with us? Is there a telephone in there?
I don't see him there yet.
No. I'll quickly read, this is an annual grant, which I know we're very familiar with. From the chief of police, it's just describing what I just said, and they are requesting the grant. The grant itself comes from the Attorney General. We do have a communication from the Deputy Assistant Attorney General, Maureen Hernsberg. And the conditions and requirements are the same. The award instrument includes the award information, the project information. It goes on, tells us more. Should you accept the award and fail to comply with the DOJ, we'll pursue the appropriate remedies for noncompliance. I think we've had this grant for close to 2 decades. I don't think there's an issue there. Mayor, how you doing on this one? If I'm right, this one
You're
is
doing a lot
used-
better than me.
Okay, no,
But
I'm stalling for time because I'm pretty sure
if you want,
this is used for the salaries with dispatchers, am I?
Well, I was going to say if you want, visit this later in the meeting, and I can get more information for you and circle right back tonight.
That would be, let's hang on a second. Our auditor is with us. Tanya, how are you on this one?
Oh, do you hear me? I'm sorry.
We can hear you now, yep.
I apologize. I have the same information as you do, so I'm not sure what they're actually planning on paying with this grant. I'm sorry.
Okay, why don't we just keep it on the table for a second? Maybe the mayor can find a little bit for us, and hopefully John, Sergeant Hart will join us shortly, because I know it's an annual grant, and I know it's something that's not controversial, but we always should get a question and answer period. So,
Motion to lay number 3 on the table for later review.
motion made second to lay number 3 on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
We make a motion to take item number 4
Second.
off the table for discussion.
Could be quick. Motion made second to take item 4 off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This at request of the city council, I believe Finance Committee, Councilor Jordan and others, that we get a copy of the purchase agreement for police cruisers, the number 1 and master lease purchase agreement that is currently in effect. We laid this on the table on October 17th. Tanya has provided us with the information as requested, but we at the moment have no one from the police department. We do have the mayor. I'm not sure if he's up to date, because this originally goes back a few years.
2019.
2019, yeah. So under discussion, Mayor Garcia or Tanya, is there anything you could talk to us about our cruiser lease? I believe Marcotte has not run out yet, am I correct?
So I'm going to say they did make their last payment on the 2022 lease agreement. I think it was last month. So the city's lease agreements are all done for now.
Okay.
And they're buying, I think, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. But
No,
during,
that's okay.
okay, I'm sorry. During the budget hearing, see, there was a request before the city council within the budget, and it was, we thought at that point in time that this agreement was up quicker than it was. And then I think you either cut it or we cut it, and
Remember, we talked about there was an overlap.
Yeah.
What we did was take out of capital stabilization to pay for the first half of the new, and we called it a lease, but apparently it's not a lease.
Yeah.
While at the same time, we're finishing up our existing lease agreements with whoever we're contracted to, I think was Marcotte.
Yeah.
Remember, there was that kind of transition overlap.
so with that in mind, are there questions from the committee, or do we need to further pursue this?
Well, I mean, I did have some questions, Mr. Chairman, relative to interest being paid internally to the lease. Are we aware of that? We're paying 3% interest on these leases. Is that something that we want to do? We paid under this one particular package, $4,610 in interest. Is that
Current
something?
lease arrangement that we have,
This one here from 2019 that was presented to
right,
me.
and this is the final payment for that existing lease arrangement, right?
Well, this one allegedly ended in October of 2020. Allegedly, we paid $315,000 in October of 2019 and October of 2020. I don't know if there's been subsequent leases, because that's sort of my second question, which was, it looks like we're either getting away from doing leases and we're just going to go and buy the cruisers, or are we going to continue with another similar arrangement?
What we have going on now with name of the company, what's it called? It's on the state bid list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, purchasing that.
Oh my
Vehicles.
God, MHQ.
Yeah,
like that, yeah.
that's right. Yep.
So their arrangement is, remember at the last meeting, we were calling them leases, but they weren't really lease, but
Right.
we used the word lease. The city is getting into a contract very similar to how we did with Marcotte. You agree to pay X in a 2-year period for these number of vehicles. That's what we're getting into now. As far as whether or not we're going to be entering into any further leases in the future, I haven't thought that far ahead yet.
We're not paying interest now, though, under the new arrangement, correct?
I can't say for sure. Tanya, do you have
I don't
the,
think that's a lease, Mayor.
it's not a lease. It's
That was
not.
a contracted purchase. That's not a lease agreement at all. The last payment they made from the 2020 lease agreement was the last lease that we've entered into
With Marcotte.
with Markov, but then they purchased outright the vehicles from Markov, and then they take them to the MHQ and they get them outfitted with their lights
Right.
and their technology and things like that. But that's not a lease. And we purchase that outright. We'll purchase the supplies, we'll purchase the equipment, and have the vehicles outfitted.
Right, and that's what I meant, like, we were calling it a lease, but it's not a lease. Do you
Well, the other
have,
ones were leases. They're municipal leases. We paid interest.
the counselor was asking if we know if there's interest in that contract arrangement we have with MHQ.
Today? No.
Okay.
The new vehicles we just purchased?
Right,
No.
okay.
There's no interest. We purchased those outright.
I
They're
know-
like $67,000 a piece, or so. I can't even remember what it was.
Okay. So, there was a schedule that's dated, so the first lease, which was valued at $315,000, was through City National Bank of Florida. And apparently we paid $4,610 in interest under that arrangement. The second arrangement was dated June 17th, 2022. This one is in the amount of $206,245, and that we paid interest rate at 4.25%, and we paid an interest payment of $8,408. Is that,
That's the lease that we're transitioning, where we find, what was that, like the second payment of a 3-year payment?
let's see, this says there was a payment due on June 17th, 2022, which left a remaining balance of the $197,836.
Which was for this year,
Which is what we just paid.
Just paid,
So
right.
we paid that off.
and that's done,
And now we're done with leases.
right?
Okay, so the policy going forward from your administration is, we're not gonna do these, we're gonna use either capital stabilization, or we're gonna pay for them as, like regular, like we used to do. We would either
The
put it in the
policy is
budget.
going to be, you assess the need.
Yep.
And certainly, we want to be sure that we commit to a practice where, we understand what our needs are ahead of time, and we're budgeting and planning for it using capital stabilization, free cash, or whatever.
Right,
But whatever the circumstances is, let's say that's not an option that's available and we need a car, so you go to Plan B.
Right.
Raise and appropriate, let's
Right,
say, or
right.
bond, which is Plan Z. Bonding is the last resort for me.
right, right.
But yeah, so right now, the way that it stands currently, and it's not because I wanted it to, although this is a good arrangement, it's because MHQ is on the state bid lists.
Yep.
They had the vehicles in order, ready for the city, and an arrangement that didn't require apparently a interest or anything, and that's where we are today. But again, circumstances can change in the future. But right now, this is a good circumstance for the city.
Yeah, no, and again, that was our long-standing policy, as we sort of paid as we went, and I'd like to kind of go back to that. They're also in here, besides interest, they have certain underwriting fees that they charge too. I noticed in this last arrangement, there was one for $545. It's that type of stuff. If we could avoid, you do these two here over the last couple of years, it's 4610, 8406, 525. You add it all up, and it's boom, $14,000 that went poof just for I don't know if it helped our cash flow or what, but it would be helpful. Let's put it this way. I like where you're going now.
Yeah.
So I think you've got it in the right place. I certainly support that. And I think this, from my perspective, this is what I wanted, was just the documents, because I wanted to understand. It looked like I listened carefully and approved of what you were doing, but it looked like what you were doing was a shift. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened here. The prior 2019 to early 2020, there was this prior policy of starting to lease. And, but I just wanted to get the document so I could see, typically is interest, there is fees. And so I was watching for those kind of things. And I mean, they weren't outrageous, but it is still, $13,000, $14,000 that, we would like to have in our pocket versus somebody else's. But, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the information. I have what I need.
Is there any further discussion? Counselor Tomlin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad we got these documents too to give us a better understanding on how these are paid for. And I know we talked it as a lease, but it's not really a lease. It's payment. We own these vehicles, but that was
We
confusing.
had a lease.
Yeah, we have a lease.
Bought
but
it out.
We just finished it
Yeah.
finally. And
We
but
bought
have
it.
a whole new arrangement.
But the
going
way
on.
they stated, it can be a little confusing. But I believe the chief came in about a month or two ago and we discussed this, and it was basically better to get these vehicles now, and actually it was a savings instead of waiting, because normally you would wait a year. But by purchasing these vehicles now, I think there was a significant savings because you got these vehicles when they're ready to go. So I just want to compliment the mayor and the chief for trying to get these moving, because it's important to have these vehicles ready for our officers on a daily basis.
And just so that you guys are aware too, in the grand scheme of just vehicles in general, we are going to be streamlining the management and control of it through the purchasing office, so that we can know, because the other thing that happens here, it's frustrating, when we buy replacement vehicles, but we're not replacing the vehicle, we're repurposing vehicles. For replacing a vehicle is to get, you bring a new vehicle in, you're getting rid of the other one through a surplus. And so our vehicle fleet is growing, it increases insurances, and then we have cars sitting around doing nothing. And then also there was some confusion about, when vehicles were coming on and off, department heads were working directly with the insurance company, and then we had some pay-by-plate issues with the Mass Pike. So we're going to streamline all of that and have it controlled and centralized so that we know that things are in order.
I appreciate that.
Can I ask you the toughest question of the night?
Oh boy.
Insurance.
Where do we get those nice Holyoke 150th pins?
When I meet with you, I've been
Oh, okay.
right,
I'm
Councilor.
going to hold you to that.
Councilor Bacon
Oh,
got
you
hers.
already got one? Oh, I didn't get one. I like that.
I
That's
got
sharp.
mine.
I've scheduled meetings with everybody. As you come in, I give you the parting gift.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the value to that pin is, I want to make sure that these meetings are legal.
$150.
No gold plating.
A special year, it's the 150th for the city, it's the 70th for the St. Patrick's Parade. We had a lot of celebrations this year.
Absolutely.
Did you guys know that they never dedicated the city
City Hall.
or City Hall?
Oh. Sounds like a
So-
good year to do it.
This year.
Oh, did I spill the beans, Mayor?
Yeah.
What?
Did I spill the beans?
I don't know
Is
what you're
that-
talking about.
Counselor Anderson Burgos, could you raise your hand when you want to speak next time?
I am so sorry, sir. I am so sorry.
I think you spilled
Yeah,
some beans.
I didn't know if anybody in the room knew that.
I know.
Oh, we
City
do
Hall
now?
was- Yeah, you're welcome.
Josh is still smiling. Your pin's going to go back tomorrow, though. All right.
So I would just say.
Comply with-
Yeah,
Complied with?
complied with number 4. Yep.
Motion made and seconded. There's no further discussion. This is complied with. Counselor Tallman?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Powell? Counselor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Item 5.
Oh, should I take item number 5 off the table?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take item 5 off the table. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. This is that the Honorable City Council approve an increase in funding request in the amount of $3,000 for the Wisteriahurst Museum Painting Restoration Project. Originally, Wisteriahurst applied for a grant of $125,000 via the CPA to complete the project, but due to rising costs in building materials across the nation, they now need another $3,000. It's off the table for discussion. We are joined by Megan Siller from Wisteriahurst And hi, Megan, welcome. And I don't think Amy is here tonight, correct? Which is okay. And our liaison from the city council is Councilor Rivera. We did table this at our last meeting, and we were taking up for the second time. Megan, welcome. Did you want to address this?
I think I was supposed to meet with Meg and Kathy to go over some details, and she was going to provide some more insight about this project per Jordane's request. But I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any insight if council members have anything.
Okay. As far as your meeting with the law department and with Amy from CPA, some of the questions on the table were about maintenance and the legitimacy of using CPA monies for this. I did have a chance to talk to Attorney Dagan. I did have a chance to talk to Amy. Megan, I don't think you and I have talked, but that meeting I know was scheduled the week before and it's been postponed to, I believe, this coming Friday. And I think those questions, until I don't think Attorney Bissonette is aware of any of this, but I think those questions, are going to have to be on hold until we get that. In general, can you tell us how the project is going with the money you do have, and what the deficits are, and what it's going to take to get this job done?
Well, currently we have the 125,000, and then we have 75,000 that has recently been accepted by the city council on behalf of the Wisterios Foundation. So we are funded to $200,000 for the overall project that came in at bid for $203,000.
And you need this additional 3,000?
Yes, to meet the shortfall of the $3,000 for the overall bid for the project. And then the Wisterios Foundation is going to come up with the $1,800 to do the trimming back of the wisteria hair spines by a local specialist.
Councilor Jordan.
Right. So, Megan, obviously you understand my concern. My concern is strictly a legal compliance one. We'll find you the $3,000. If it's not this pot of gold, it'll be a different pot of gold. There's no question. We're just waiting for clearance from Kathy that changing the paint or, repainting the wisteria hearse or whatever the extent of it is, restoration and not maintenance of the building. So it meets legal compliance, but fear not, you'll get your $3,000. But when was the work supposed to begin? I would assume once the weather warms up, right? It's too cold to paint, I would say now, obviously. Sometime in the spring.
Our hope is that we can get under contract, which we can't do until we're fully funded. Okay. So once we can enter in the contract with the winning bidder, then we can start making a schedule. We hope that even during the cold, we could start some of the restoration work on the rot that has occurred because of the missing paint and the long time between the paintings. So there's a lot of trim and wood rot that has to be replaced before they can even get started. So hopefully we can get all of that done. And then by the current terms of the contract would be they'd need to be finished by May 31st.
So question, and perhaps this is the mayor too, if this is time sensitive in terms of working with your contractor, do you have an expense line in your budget that could cover the $3,000 for now, and or do we need to take $3,000 out of capital stabilization so you, at least for now, we can encumber it, and then once we figure out this CPA question, then we can backfill the money some way, somehow? I mean, we're only talking about $3,000. Yeah, we're only talking $3,000.
Well, I think the question is, Mr. Chairman and councilors, what is the timeline, Megan?
The timeline is that the painting project needs to be finished by May 31st of 2023.
When are the contractors? I'm assuming you've already procured and secured the folks who are going to do the work.
We have secured a winning bid for the work. We cannot enter into a contract until the expenditure is fully funded and sitting in an account. So right now, we're waiting for, we just got approval from the city council to accept the $75,000. So I'm working with my board to get that money transferred to the city. And then we would just need the additional $3,000 to then officially sign the contract with the firm that bid successfully.
What's the anticipated start time?
I don't know. We would hope that, late winter, early spring, they could get started.
So to Councilor Jordan's point, I guess, until you hear back from legal, but if worse comes to worse, I'll be more than happy to submit a line item transfer request out of capital stabilization for $3,000.
Now, again, not to be a rain cloud, and I'm not going down this road because this predates, the 125 was approved before I came here, but there is the potential that the law department could say if the 3,000 is not okay, then the 125 is not okay either. There is that potential because it's the same rules. And so therefore, she might say, okay, well, doing the, trimming of bushes, is that maintenance or is that restoration? I don't know. So just.
Well, and that will be covered by the board. So the board was going to be paying for the trimming back of the wisteria, her spines, in order to allow the painting to happen and the restoration work to happen.
So the 128 is all painting then?
That's all it's repairing all of the damage that's been done because of the lack of painting work that's been done.
Okay.
It includes the paint, which we found a historical survey of the paint samples that are original to the house. So the color is going to shift just a smidge to be historically accurate to what was done for the scientific paint survey.
Okay.
And then it'll be painted after that.
Okay. All right.
Just, and thank you, Mayor. Painting schedule is one thing, but the restoration schedule, any prep work for a big painting project like this, I think is even time-wise more important. And I think that's that's the key, because they can start working on the wood now or soon, as long weather permitting. The painting is, until temperature permitting, but there's two things I'm just going to say. One is I'm confident this is historical and not maintenance, and it should be allowed by CPA. And two is, with all due respect to our law department, we don't have to listen to them.
Right. We don't.
Your law department,
You said
Mayor.
it. I don't-
You might want to pick up the phone. Councilor Reagan.
Thanks. I just wanted to make one comment. I do think in this situation, because we are looking at restoration of the wood itself, and we are looking at a historically significant building and looking at historical restoration relative to the paint, it's a different situation than in the example where we were talking about maintenance fixing a roof. I would just say, I think there are distinctions here and differences. Thank you.
Yes, and I think the thing that I'm trying to point out is, let's have that conversation, and at least there's the evaluation going on.
I agree.
My concern before the last 6 months was maintenance, statute. What are you even talking about? Never even heard of that. And now it's like, oh, we're actually looking to see if what we're doing meets the statutory rules.
Right.
So, and if, like I said, as long as it is, 100% I'm good.
Right.
It's just, I don't want someone to come back later and say, what are you people doing? You're not
Right.
allowed to do this, that, and another. And so as long as we're good, I'm good. And
Right.
Kathy, I think, has become a student of this whole thing, so I'll defer to her judgment.
Right. And through the chair, I totally agree that we do want to make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's. Thanks.
Understood. Any further discussion?
Make a motion to, I guess, table it until we hear
Motion made
back.
and second to table this item as we wait for the information back from our law department and CPA and Megan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. One more, Megan.
Motion to take item number 6 off the table.
Motion made second to take item 6 off the table. Introduced by Councilor Jordan. That the mayor or mysterious director please give the city council an update and repair plan, specifically when the walls and the grounds will be repaired and how it will be funded. This needs to be a priority and fixed as soon as possible. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We have both Megan, from Wisteriahurst and our mayor here with us. Would either of you care to address this?
I think in your packets, there's communication from the city engineers.
Yep, from Chris. Yep.
And so it's pretty detailed, but just to add a comment here, this has been the most frustrating. Probably out of everything I'm dealing with, I think this probably is the most frustrating, because you would think it's so simple. Let's fix this wall. It's in disrepair. It's not safe. It's
Right.
and it's just, since I've been here, it's almost like, we're running around in circles, chasing tails. You peeling an onion, like, you try to figure out, and you find a path, and then there's a new challenge or barrier. But it's pretty clear in there. They did put it out to bid. I think no one responded. They're going to put it out to bid again, but then they needed some authority because it's historic. We were trying to go with an emergency angle and getting approval that way from the historic folks in the, I think, state or federal level, and they weren't too thrilled about us going to that direction. But it's being worked on. There's a plan. It's just a very slow and frustrating process, for sure.
Councilor Drain.
Thank you. Mayor, I see Chris mentions through the Office of Community Development, they got a $40,000 grant. That was just for the engineering services and the design. Do we have a number as to what it's actually going to cost to do?
We don't.
We don't.
There's a guess.
What's the
what it
guess at
actually
this
is.
point,
What is the
if you happen to know?
Off the top of my head. Megan, do you have it
I
written
think the
down somewhere?
original estimate was around $300,000. I think that was kind of the figure they were looking
my
at.
God.
And the engineering survey could include a cost estimate that would help clarify that. I know I was looking through our archives, and back in 2012, the estimate for it was around $150,000. So doubling it makes sense. The only issue would be if it extends beyond Pine Street, that work that needs to be done, that could extrapolate the expenses, and depending on how they say we should drain,
That's the problem.
that's really, welcome to historic deed preservation. Like, historic deed restrictions are incredibly challenging. You have to go through all these different channels. So depending on what is recommended for the drainage and all of that, the price is really anyone's guess at this point.
The biggest issue is it's $300,000 not just to repair that wall. There's this drainage problem throughout that is included,
Which is
in
probably
all this.
causing the wall failure, right?
It's pushing the wall situation.
Right.
And internally, I don't just want to say we joke, but we look at that wall like the symbol of the practices around here in the city for the last 2 decades. But the day that gets fixed is the day that I think we're all going to say, hey, things are finally moving in a better direction.
Right.
But yeah, it's mostly because of the drainage and making sure that we're staying within the historical guidelines that's causing that number to be that high.
Now, let's circle back, Megan, and again, this predates your service, and of course, Mayor, this predates your service, but for some of us who've been here for a little while, I don't remember, Peter, Joe, I don't remember a request that said, hey, would you give us $150,000 to fix the Pine Street wall, or $120,000 or whatever that number was? Because if that's true, I'm not recalling that, but was there, they got an estimate, and what happened? They just didn't do it,
This was 2 directors before me. So Melissa Boisel, they noticed that there were some issues with the retaining wall. I think back in 2011 or 2012, there was an official report done by an engineer that said that this would need attention. They gave a cost estimate. And they brought it to the attention of the city at the time. And I don't know if it was presented to the city council, if it was just presented to the mayor, but they did try to make an awareness for that. And I know my predecessor had tried to get funding for it as well, but there was an issue because it hadn't actually fallen yet, or something. I don't actually know what the problem was with not being qualifying for funding. But it has been brought to the attention of leadership on more than one occasion. I know for certain. Whether or not it made it to city council, I don't know.
Right. Because, I mean, we just almost never vote down these type of requests, you know, but it looks like Counselor Bacon wants to say something.
Councilor Bacon, yeah.
I can't remember all of the details, but I think it was similar to what the mayor's now describing. We had the report, we had the estimate of the cost, but then we got into all the weeds of how are we going to pay for it, and it never got brought through to the end.
Oh,
I think
see.
we were in this similar kind of loop, and here we are now, 10 years later. So you get the prize if you get it done.
Well, I'm ready to come up with a plan to figure out how to pay for it. It's just
Right.
getting to that is the
And I think that's what
complication.
happened before, and then things changed, people turned over, and
Yeah, because, again, I don't recall, and somebody, you know, by all means, correct us if I'm wrong, but I don't recall there ever being, here, city council, here's a request for $150,000, go fix the
no,
wall.
because I think it
I
got
don't,
jammed
because
up.
we would never, I can't imagine any scenario where we would vote down fixing something like that. So, okay, well, nevertheless, here we are, and it'll be interesting to see what their bid comes back at, but obviously, we need to move forward and fix it. You know, it is what it is.
Any further discussion?
So I guess we'll, table this, and we'll wait until we get, it's obviously in the forefront of your thoughts, obviously. So I don't have to worry about this being a priority, you know.
We meet as a every 2 weeks, a project team meeting where we go over all our projects, and this one always comes up.
Okay.
Where are we with this wall? So the wall is like, it's an I don't want to say a joke, because this isn't a joke. It's really not funny at all that it's taken this long, but it's like a symbol of everything that goes on in this city and how we need to be,
Can always
you know,
refine it.
so we'll get there.
All right. I'll make a motion that it's been complied with.
A second.
Motion made and second that we've complied with the order, and we appreciate the feedback and look forward to that funding request down the road. On the motion, Counselor Dahlman?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Rowell? Counselor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Okay, so that will be reported back to the city council, the discussion, and maybe some city councilor with deep pockets will come up for some help with you.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Mayor missed that one. Okay,
Could we take, table them together, or should keep them separate, 7 and 8? Looks like they're the same thing.
7 and 8 together, please.
Okay, suspend the rules to take items 7 and 8 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made and second to suspend the rules to take items 7 and 8 off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Discussion, 2 different orders, but the discussion is going to be the same. These are requests to transfer from capital stabilization. Item 7 is $120,000 to schools capital outlay. And then item 8 is from capital stabilization, $143,000 to schools capital outlay. We have the mayor with us. We have Mickey Buell from the school department with us. And I think that's it.
Oh, Mickey's on?
Yeah, that's,
Mickey's-
yeah, we didn't bring anybody else, and yeah, you'll understand why once we start talking about it.
Mickey, you bring the A-team. That's all we care about. This is our second discussion. I mean, I think we just need to be briefed on what this is for. But second, one of our questions was, is it net school spending if it is approved?
So we actually would jump to, what we'd actually like to do is request that this be returned to the auditor. When this request first came about, it was early in the year in October, and we were all excited about the fact that the Capital Stabilization Fund that you all created, and from my relatively newcomer standpoint, it sounds like this is a pretty historic creation. So we were excited too, and be asked, hey, what kind of vehicle needs do you have? And the vehicles in question are old. Whitney told me that the one is on its 3rd engine replacement. But as we've talked about it now since December when it came back onto the agenda for the committee, we would like to request that this be returned to the auditor because, as we know, we've got much higher priority items that we'd like to work with the city on funding around the middle school project. And we can either limp along with the old truck longer, or if it's really an issue, we'll figure out what other options we've got internally with our funds.
Make a motion to send 7 and 8 to return to the auditor.
Motion made and seconded to return items 7 and 8 to the auditor. Mickey or Tanya, do we find out if something like this is utilized in the future now? Is it net school spending?
So, Councilman, I did not look into that, but when we've done vehicle repairs or vehicle purchases that are under the threshold that the state allows, they are allowable under the net school spending. So when we've done that, we've been able to do it with the funds that are net school spending eligible. And I would suspect that we wouldn't be able to do this whole batch, these 3 vehicles all at once. But if we were to do one at a time, we would be able to do it with net school spending funds.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion then, roll call. Counselor Tallman?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Powell? Yes. Counselor Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. So this will be recommended to be returned to the auditor. Mickey, thank you. A short note could have helped you, but I know you always like joining us.
I really do. And I've got an update that I'm going to be sending your way on the transportation bid that we're so appreciative you guys gave us the 5-year window to bid, and that bid went out on the wire yesterday, and I'm going to have an update for you that we'll send to the council's next meeting.
Perfect. We appreciate that. And it looks like with the
thank you
smile,
much.
that's good news.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
All right,
take
we'll see you
care.
guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we do 9, 10 together.
Yeah, motion to take items number 9 and 10 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made second to suspend the rules to take items 9 and table as a package off the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Item 10 is introduced by Councilor Jordan that the auditor provide an update on pilot agreements. Please provide the names of the parties with whom the city has a pilot agreement, the amounts to be paid, and the status of the payments for the past 1-year period. Our payments current in parentheses. We have this submitted, received back
December 20th.
December 20th, and we did receive from the auditor in January 3rd a list and some information on the pilot agreements. So off the table is the package. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Councilor Jordan, did you want to hear from the auditor first?
Sure.
From the mayor? Or
Yeah, I
just
mean,
give
if
us
they-
an idea of some of the questions?
Yeah, if they have any opening thoughts, happy to hear from them. But other than that, I do have a few questions.
I'm not sure if pilot agreements are new to you, Mayor Garcia, but they're not new to us.
Definitely not.
Okay.
So, and I'm glad you guys are bringing this up, and it definitely helps with cleaning this up, to say the least. We've been talking about pilots and trying to get an update and wanting to renegotiate them since I first got in, but certainly other things became a priority with union contract negotiations, getting the budget ready, and all these other things going on, dealing with the public, and you know, kind of got left to the wayside. But it's never forgotten about. But certainly, as you bring it up, it kind of helps get the universe together and get things in motion. Ideally, I like to evaluate each of these pilot arrangements that we have, making sure that we have a system internally where we're appropriately invoicing and collecting and we're not missing any payments, and also renegotiating each of them so that we can increase our pilot payments pretty much. With those that I haven't read the agreements yet, so I don't know which ones we're adequately collecting, which might not require any requested increases, and others that I think it's time to get it increased. That and also creating new pilot arrangements with any nonprofit that owns property in the city of Holyoke. I know some councilors have brought that to my attention, Councilor Bacon, and as well as Bartley, and other councilors. So it's important. It's on the agenda, on the to-do list. Lisa is well aware of it, our city solicitor. She knows that this is has been a request and is a priority. And I'm hoping that now that we're at this level, that we can start achieving some progress here.
Thank you. Tanya, did you want to add anything before we get into questions?
No, thank you. I think the mayor covered it all.
Thank you. And Councilor Jordan.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you both for giving us some of this background information. Obviously, I know the person who I co-sponsored this with, Councilor Bartley, he had mentioned there are a number of other agreements that we would like to get listed here. I think it would be helpful if we have any agreements to get copies of those, and I know there's an email out from him today on this topic. That he mentions the Jackson Canal LLC Solar, Mount Tom, 11 Yale Street, some of these other ones. I believe there's also one pending with the new behavioral hospital. There's supposed to be some sort of arrangement there. I think that would be helpful, whether that's being classified as a pilot or not. I think it would be, they're calling that regular taxes.
Regular.
Okay, then we can scratch that off. But basically, any of these type of arrangements, it would be good for us to have a good inventory of them and then evaluate them to see how long it's been since they've been touched. One of the things I would like to draw folks' attention to, and I think it does bear certainly evaluation, is that it appears that some of these agreements are quite old. And when one considers what the values are today and what people would be paying, because of course this stands for payment in lieu of tax. So the question is, it's a payment in lieu of, okay, what would your tax be, right? So I took the liberty to go through for just 3 examples, because you could do more, but certainly these 3, I did pull some of the cards. And the thing that I want to ask the assessors, and I hope she'll be part of this dialogue, is, are we, when some of these entities are not paying tax, are we being aggressive to make sure that they're being properly assessed? Or is it, well, they're kind of exempt, so, come see, come saw, whatever. We just sort of have this paper number there. I want to make sure we're being totally on point with the assessments. And I think that's an important ingredient of this. Because then it goes to the bargaining position that you, Mayor, have. Because you're going to say, all right, now I'm just going to start with the first one on my list, ISO New England. ISO New England currently total value $15.6 million. Okay, so if you pull their property card, $15.6 million, they should be under, if they didn't have a pilot, would be paying a tax of $626,000 under the normal standard commercial rate. That's not what they pay. They pay a pilot of $140,000. Difference of nearly $500,000. So the question is, why does ISO New England get a 78% tax break? I don't know. Does anybody have a good answer to that? I don't. Now, Mass Green High Performance Computing Center. Wonderful people, just like ISO New England. We're very thankful they're in town. As best as I can tell, they have a number of properties, but I put their total current assessment at $5.22 million. Their tax would normally be $210,000. They're currently paying a pilot of $80,000. So that's a discount of 62%. Okay. Now, the other thing that's key to that is, why isn't it that the personal property in the building also being subject to tax?
That's a big one.
Yeah, and that's a lot more probably than $5.22 million. So when you consider that, what's the real discount? That's 62% off just the buildings and land, right? So other businesses in town don't get these kind of tax breaks. Residents certainly don't get these kind of tax breaks. What is so special about these entities that they're not paying? You know, they're not historical tax exempts like churches and certain nonprofits. That we understand. We all take that on as a society because of the good that is there as part of a community. But when you have things that are basically quasi businesses that are getting these type of tax breaks, I think we definitely need to give a lot of scrutiny to them to make sure that they're commercially reasonable and fair to the community. We obviously know we have a revenue problem, right? Okay, third one, Holyoke Housing Authority. Holyoke Housing Authority owns 66 properties. I took the liberty to look at those cards. Currently assessed value, as best as I could figure, pretty close approximation, $34 million. Now, I question that number right off the top as being low, but let's just say for the sake of argument, $34 million. The tax on that would be $652,000. They're currently paying a pilot of $16,000. Okay, 90. That's 10% would be 65,000. They're about a 97% tax break. 97%. Can I get a 97% tax break? I'd love to get a 97% at my house. And the question is, what are the services being used by all the wonderful residents that live in these things, right? We have to educate, we have to provide public safety, we have to have good streets, all these things, but yet Holyoke Housing Authority gets a 97% tax break. And I think if you really had real assessments, you're gonna see that the tax break's a lot more than even 97%. It's probably 99.99%, and here's why. Because I pulled the card for Bowdoin Village. Bowdoin Village is assessed at $9.6 million. There's 55 buildings there on 22 acres of land, okay? There's at least 4 units, so you've got greater than 200 apartments there. So basically that's only assessed at $9 million? That should be way more than that, a development of that type of size. Let me give you some other examples. Coughlin Apartments, 2.4 million. So that's 300 Walnut Street. How many apartments are in Coughlin Apartments? There's like 7 floors with about 10 apartments per floor, just about, right? You got 70 apartments. Do the rental value on all those units. It's assessed at $2.4 million. That's really, really low in my estimation. You look at Zielinski Apartments, $2 million. Rosary Towers, $3 million. You know, when you have the sheer quantity of the amount of apartments and potential rental value, I think a lot of that is looking bad. Now, are they collecting the rents? No, but their budget is calculated based on federal subsidies and all of this, a little bit that the residents pay and a lot that there's different subsidies and stuff. But the total economic value of the building, if it were under, comparable to a market rate, that building for building, you took out low income and put in regular residents, then, what would be the rents calculated on the building? The question is, what is the building and the land worth? And so I think some of these assessments need to be relooked at. I think some of these are low. And so, because you'd say, gee, you have a nice house in Holyoke and you're assessed at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and some of these buildings, have 80, 90, 100 apartments in them, and they're only 4 times the value or 5 times the value of 4 or 5 nice single family homes, but yet you got 80, 90, 100 units. Mm-hmm. Is that reasonable? I'm just saying professionals need to look at these things. So there's a lot to consider here. And if we're going to be financially viable as a community, these type of things, we can't just give away to ISO New England, who is a healthy company. They make a lot of, they're doing well for themselves. We can't afford to give them a $500,000 tax break. Same with the Green High Performance Computing Center and the Housing Authority. They should be building into their grants and their programs and the things that they're getting federal subsidy for. Hey, we got to help Holyoke here, right? Our residents use services. We need to pay some reasonable share of the services like all the other residents in town. That needs to be built into their grants and otherwise. So I know you know that. I know Tanya knows that. I'm preaching to the choir here, and I appreciate the attention that's being put on here. So I'm only saying these things for emphasis. But I wanted, just for people that are listening to the conversation, some of the numbers I took those as 3 examples. These are certain things that we can do to generate another $2 million for the city every year, another $3 million for the city every year, and that can be the difference, make or break every year to us paying our bills. So I do appreciate the effort you're putting into this topic. Thank you.
Councilor Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Councilor Jordan and Councilor Bartley, for filing this order. I just want to throw into the mix that if we were able to get more contributions from our nonprofit residents, it would help to reduce the burden on the homeowners who are getting seriously squeezed, even when they've already paid off their home. They're just getting squeezed to stay in their home at this point. And so we need to find a way to share the burden that is increasing on a smaller group of taxpayers every year. So I would ask for consideration in the mix to the nonprofits who've bought up a number of our homes and taken them off the tax rolls too. So I would just throw out, and certainly I haven't done deep research on this, but I did just, I think today, send a link to the Northampton model, because they have a lot of pilots, because they have a lot of nonprofits there too. So I've just sent that over to the mayor just very recently, and we can all look at it. And that's just one example, but I think it's a good example in the sense that it sets benchmarks similar to how we do CPA.
Right.
It gives credit for this and that, and it looks to seek participation based on value and not for the small nonprofits that have, not large holdings, but for the large tax exempts that really have a lot of property in the city. So those kind of things are out there, and if we formalize it and everybody isn't sitting there thinking, well, they have a really good deal on their pilot with the city, then it would sort of level the playing ground, right? So anyway, I would just throw that out for consideration. And I appreciate all the attention being paid to it by both the council and our mayor. Thank you, Mayor Garcia.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes. Thank you for bringing up about the group homes. I think you're in particular alluding to. Great point. And I think if we go through the cards, you can see a lot of these homes that are not owned by actual residents. They're owned by nonprofit companies that are purchasing homes and putting in group homes. And there's quite a few throughout the city. So they need to pay taxes because the former owners were paying taxes, and we just can't afford to have that offline. The other thing that we need to, again, is that's not on the current pilot list is a lot of these, ServiceNet across the street from Providence Hospital purchased that medical office building, assessed at $1.2 million, took it offline, bye-bye tax bill. State of Massachusetts, God bless them. They're sitting on billions, right? They buy Grin and Barrett, put the nursing school in there, bye-bye $82,000 a year in taxes, right? That hurts, okay? We need a check for that. Pat Duffy and John Velas, you got to get us a check for those things. The plumbers union, they buy the Sears Automotive, poof, that goes offline. These Girls Inc., we mentioned Girls Inc., whether or not they would be one, but it was $35,000. You know, the former law offices that were there, they were paying 35 grand. They buy it, poof, $35,000 gone. It's a cumulative effect of all of these is just crushing. And the thing that concerns me about the overall thing is why the property tax system is so unfair to cities like Holyoke is where you have aggregations of poverty and need, you have the call for more, by nature, right? The call for more services and nonprofits and people that want to help. It's wonderful. But at the flip side of that is they're buying up the property and they're doing this, and now all this stuff's coming off the tax roll. So now your problem it's a circular effect of you're digging your own hole that the poorer you get, the more nonprofits you get. And the more nonprofits you get, the less tax revenue you get to address the needs of the community. And it's just, and this is the cycle that appears, and by my nature, by my observation, we're on. And when you consider our tax base as a percentage of our budget versus a Westfield or a Chicopee or these other communities, I mean, it's just staggering the amount that we're short as a percentage of our levy.
A couple of other areas too, just for discussion purposes. I believe the Holyoke Health Center is actually paying property tax. I think that's never been changed, and that was the agreement all along. But Holyoke Medical, former Holyoke Hospital, is not paying anything in terms of what services are provided by the city. And I think it comes into a different category, but if you look at the number of homes they have purchased, good single-family homes, torn them down to expand their parking lots, it's scary. And I've never gotten a straight answer as to why they don't build a parking deck and build up for parking purposes. My all-time favorite, we call it pet peeve? Yeah. Is, and I'm going to say this in two ways. Bay State Medical is building a hospital privately at the former geriatric site, and we know we're getting property tax from that. And I appreciate that, because that's the way I think most of these medical institutions should go, because the demand on services is even bigger than the not-for-profits that we've been talking about. But my pet peeve has always been the manufacturer that was going to save the city of Holyoke back in the 80s and 90s was Dr. Wang. And Dr. Wang's manufacturing building off of Balboa Road is now the lab for Bay State Medical Hospital. No money, and if you look in that parking lot, there's 100 vehicles parked there overnight. We can't even get an excise tax on vehicles from the hospital. And it just goes on and on and on. Mayor Garcia.
And I couldn't have explained it better myself. I think, so the interesting thing about these pilots is that they're voluntary. I can't make them do it. And I think those that we have currently have been negotiated at the time using whatever formula they use, and that was right for that time. And here we are today. I don't think it's been ever revisited, ever talked about. Maybe it has. I don't know. I haven't connected with anybody to tell me the history, but it sounds like to me it hasn't been. I do have every interest in wanting to revisit these with all of these organizations and negotiate in good faith. We do have to follow some sort of, there's got to be some sort of formula to follow when trying to reach a fair agreement. But I think it's in that process where folks come around and say, hey, that's fair, I can agree with that. It's not like I'm saying to them, give us this or else. It's, no, here's points you've just raised about valuation. Here's what's, you're getting. This is the percentage of it. But this is what you're also, whatever services that are going to that area, like we can even highlight some of that and say, well, police has responded X amount of times, fire has responded. I think there's reasonable things that we can come forward in these negotiations to get organizations to come around and say. And some of these organizations, like I did hear about Holyoke Gas and Electric, when they were asked, no problem, and increased it an extra 100,000 or something. we just never asked probably. So there's a lot of circumstances probably involved, but it has been talked about. It's on the to-do list for every reason that you're bringing up, Councilor Jordan. If we can bring up, you said 2 million. I'd be surprised if we'd get 2 million, but $500,000 to $1 million will make me happy, for sure. So it's I'll keep you posted.
Councilor Jordan.
Yep. If you could get $500,000 out of the Housing Authority and $500,000 out of ISO New England,
Win.
you're off to the races right there. In addition to all these other ones, but Mayor, whatever we can do to support you. But I will say your points are right on, and you're really fighting from. We'll see how much there is in terms of goodwill, but I already filed an order. It was adopted by the City Council unanimously to ask our state legislature to, that resolution that we filed requesting additional funds. What I think the second tier of this pilot argument is that if we really do our homework on it, and you can't get the money ultimately out of the beneficiaries of all of our legislative grace, then that makes the case to the state legislature to say, look, they have all this exempt property in their town. And these people, under the current law, it's all voluntary. They can choose to not give Holyoke anything. And right now, if you averaged it all up, exempt property versus this, they are giving away 70%, is not covered under a pilot. That makes the case, and say that number is 5 million, 7 million, 10 million. Lord knows what that number would be. We'll see what the math shakes out to be. Then you can say, Boston, this is why the 4 million that I put in there, we need that, because again, it's all of these things that the system that they have put us in, this doesn't work. This is all completely dysfunctional for a community with our needs. And we're not going to break out of this box long term to have real economic stability without this being recognized in the local aid formulas. Because if you just say, oh, well, you're under the same formula as Wilbraham and Long Meadow and all these communities, they don't have exempt property like we have exempt property. They don't have the type of budgets that we need. What's the police budget in Long Meadow? What's the police budget in Wilbraham? I mean, it's a joke. They don't have our type of needs. And to say you generate revenue in the exact same way, in the exact same formulas as Wilbraham and Long Meadow and these other communities, this is a setup for failure. And long term, it's going to mean that, and by the way, and I have done a cross-community comparison, our number of dollars that we put in police and fire is way up versus other communities, but it's way low on public works. And this is why you see the manifestations of this, because public works is the thing that's called deferred maintenance. And you can kick those cans down the curb, so poor communities do. And that's why we have the potholes and the falling down walls and all this stuff, because we're just trying to pay the basics, all right? Like you need a cop, you need a fireman, you need a teacher, right? You need those. Well, maybe we fix the wall, maybe we don't, right? And now they put these regulations on us like the sewers and all this other stuff. For example, and this is why I have a difficulty with these things, like they'll say, oh, well, you can't say this is an unfunded mandate, or they don't want us to say that, right, when they come time for us to fund the consent decrees and all this money that they want us to come up with. Well, here you have all these regulations put on a community that just by way of geographic fortunes, we happen to be located on a river. But people of the communities of the Commonwealth, right, drive down all the various roads that we share with each other. So I drive down Chickabee's roads, but I don't pay a sewer fee in Chickabee, and Chickabee residents pay a sewer fee don't pay a sewer fee in Holyoke and they drive on our roads. Okay. These are common charges that normally in the past you would pay in your own community for your own fees. But because they're putting these mandates on Holyoke, other communities don't have anywhere near these type of mandates because they don't happen to be on a river, right? So CSO is not an issue in their community. This is why when they pass these rules and then the state says, oh, Holyoke, you pay for the bill we don't want to pay. We love giving you the mandate, but we don't want to give you the money to pay it. So it's another setup for failure, right? So then they just say, oh, all those poor people down in Holyoke, just ask them for more. And if you don't do it, you don't like the environment. You hate the river. Okay, it's insanity arguments, right? No, we don't want to pay for it because we can't pay for it because I got a wall for $300,000 at Wisteriahurst that needs to get fixed, and I got a pothole on Lord knows how many streets in this town, and thank you to your hard work, we got High Street repaved and all these other things that we're doing in this town.
To build.
Right? We need, this is why the state needs to change the paradigm on all this, and this, in my opinion, is one of the big arguments of how we change the game and we change the narrative with the state to say, look at this property tax system, it doesn't work. And yes, we're going to try to do it on our own. Mayor Garcia is going to go out there and he's going to ask all these people to pay us more. But at the end of the day, it's a rigged game against Mayor Garcia because
against all of us, yeah.
Against all of us, right? We're all on the same team. We all want the same thing. But when you'll be the spokesman because you're our leader, but like you're going to go and you're going to ask and they're going to say, yeah, but maybe I give you a little bit more, but I really don't have to give this guy anything. And, but at least now you can turn around to the state and say, I tried. Okay, I tried to go out and get more locally and raise it. I need you guys to do your part because what is raised here is not enough. And this community has these needs. And Holyoke deserves so much better than we're getting.
And that's aligned to the very same argument we were making at the Public Safety Committee meeting. I think Councilor Bacon, you were there when we were talking about when we're dealing with issues around homelessness and opioids and addiction. I had made some comments about the problem. Everyone's looking at the local government to solve all these issues that we necessarily create. It's going to take bigger, and I don't want to get away from your point here. It's kind of the same thing. It's going to require something greater than us, state intervention, to definitely step in and do something transformative that's going to right-size the equity here. Because you're right, there's a lot of, it's almost like we are set up for failure. We do the best we can with what we have, and meanwhile, the rate keeps climbing, services and costs keep climbing, and the revenue is not there because of our level of compassion that we've had since, for decades. And I think that what you're arguing is a different level of discussion, I guess, politically, when we're trying to get the attention and seek transformative change at the Commonwealth level to address this particular issue, in particular for gateway cities like Holyoke. So it's just another complex problem.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, if I can?
Councilor Reagan.
And just to stay on the tangent for another minute, the only statistic I've heard so far is well over 50% of the drug problems in our city are coming into our city from outside of the city. So it truly is a regional matter, even though each city will get its own buckets of money. I just think there still needs to be some kind of regional collaboration in that regard. The pilot thing, though, here we are, right?
The pilot's doable, and that's like a good short-term measure,
Yep,
but there's still that bigger
something we
problem
can
that
try.
Counselor is talking about the system itself. It's hard to get your mind
The drug, there's no simple answer to any of it. The drug issues are probably correct, and we've had looks at it over the years. And I don't mean kids, but our residents don't use drugs; they sell them, and that's why we need a strong police department and a enforcing police department. For many years, I've said and believe a big part of our problem is we don't create poverty, we service poverty.
Right.
And we have a ratio of low-income housing that no one comes close to in the entire Commonwealth. And we do well. We do it well, and service means it puts a tax, and Mayor, you said it, puts a tax on our schools, for, special needs, that come, a tax on our police department, a tax on the court system, not our court system, and it just goes down the line, and it's nothing wrong with that, except it puts a tax on the property owners that are unfairly, as Councilor Jordan said, being assessed property tax, which there is no rhyme or reason to how to make property tax fair. And we don't choose property tax, the state chooses it for us, because they would rather income tax and sales tax and other revenue coming in, gas tax, than to have to deal with property tax. They don't want to hear people. And so they say to the municipalities, your taxing scheme is property tax. And maybe when we have John and Pat into our next discussion, we can go over all this stuff with them.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
Nope. I think, let's see here, in terms of,
I think we just comply.
I think
table
there,
them.
just table them, Joe?
I think we need the information.
I think you're right. So, motion to table 9 and 10.
Okay, motion made, second to table items 9 and 10. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can we go back to 3 real quick?
Yes, motion to take up item 3.
Motion made, second to take item 3 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? John, Sergeant Hart's been texting me. I told you he texted me before the meeting. He could not, he tried to make the connection via telephone. He will make himself available Tuesday to answer any questions. This is a reoccurring grant.
Okay.
I think we can do that real quick on Tuesday if it's okay.
I'll make a motion to be adopted, considering there's no match, and we'll get the 411 on it on Tuesday.
A second.
Motion made, second that we recommend adoption with Sergeant Hart being available or someone from the police department to answer any questions on Tuesday. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Counselor Tallman.
Yes.
Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Pueblo. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yes.
Counselor McGivern, yes. Okay, that recommendation will go to the city council. That's it, folks.
Motion to adjourn.
No second.
Made, second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Roll call.